The ceremony reached its pivotal moment during the ring exchange. Unexpectedly, my bride announced she needed a 5-minute recess. She pivoted and exited the stage, tears welling in her eyes. Extending her ring finger towards her beloved, she whispered, "Alex, you once vowed to propose publicly. If there's another life, will you marry me?" Alex nodded, embracing her gently, then faced me and said, "Daniel, even though I won't marry Emily in this lifetime, please take good care of her for me." Murmurs rippled through the guests. Before me stood the bride, locked in an intimate kiss with another man. Everyone awaited my reaction, expecting me, the groom, to make a spectacle. I simply smiled and approached Alex, placing his boutonniere on his chest, and remarked, "Why would there be no chance? If you both can't let go, I'll make it happen now." For 8 years, I believed that once we married and started a family, Emily would come around. But now I witnessed the woman who was supposed to pledge her eternal commitment to me passionately kissing someone else. No matter how tightly I clenched my fists or ground my teeth, my heart pained deeply. Suddenly, I could no longer restrain myself. Alex grabbed his chest, breathing heavily, and Emily hurried to support him. Realizing Alex might be having a heart attack, she rushed to take him to the hospital. As she left, she berated me for being petty and cruel, saying something that should have been resolved in 5 minutes had escalated dramatically. Neither side's parents could intervene, so I endured the remaining hostility. The officiant, holding the congratulatory speech, gave me an uneasy glance. My mother, disappointed and tearful, reprimanded me, insisting I return and bring Emily back. My father sneered coldly, telling me to handle it myself, and dragged my mother away. My mother-in-law, who already despised me, harshly criticized me, calling me an unrefined simpleton who lacked worldly experience. She lectured that if I wanted to join their family, I needed to swallow my pride and avoid embarrassing my wife publicly. For the first time in 8 years, I understood that true feelings aren't always mutual. This role as a son-in-law I no longer desired. They departed with the remaining guests, urging me to return alone and contemplate. I watched as everyone left, leaving the hotel silent and empty behind me. A sudden downpour began in front of me. Once Emily's parents and everyone else had left, my own parents arrived by car. My mother rolled down the window. Seeing them, all the built-up humiliation surged forth. I hoarsely called out to her and reached for the car door, but then I heard the lock click from inside. I stared at them, bewildered. My mother, disappointed, scolded me. "I told you before, but you didn't listen. Now listen to your mother-in-law and reflect. Find a way to win Emily back. After all, you saved her life. No matter what, Alex can't surpass you." "Mom, how could you say that?" I protested. My mother ignored me, closed the window, and the car sped away. I watched the taillights fade, and my heart grew colder by the inch. The wedding was held at a resort midway up the mountain where there was no signal to call a taxi. A kind waiter handed me an umbrella, looking at me sympathetically. After expressing my gratitude, I opened the umbrella and began trudging down the mountain, my left leg throbbing more with each step in the rain. The rain soaked me, chilling me to the bone. Eventually, I found a signal, and countless messages appeared, all from Emily. Every message questioned why. After explaining she only saw Alex as a brother, I had to make things difficult for him. I ignored them until a video arrived from an unknown number. In it, Emily held Alex's hand as he underwent a medical checkup. Her lips kissed his fingers repeatedly as she tearfully pleaded for his well-being. It reminded me of the time I was injured saving Emily. With my left leg still healing, I slipped in the bathroom and hit my head on the sink. Dazed and disoriented, I instinctively called her for comfort. But her response was cold, saying she wasn't a doctor and couldn't help. I was hospitalized for 2 weeks, and she never visited. Later, I discovered that on the day I fell, Alex had cut his hand while cooking. The doctor mentioned it might leave a scar. Feeling distressed, Emily vented her frustration and worry on me. I chuckled inwardly, realizing I had awakened to reality too late, leading me to this humiliating situation. While attempting to hail a taxi, Emily called. Angrily, she demanded I apologize to Alex for causing his heart issues. Struggling to steady my flimsy umbrella, I calmly replied, "I'm still at the hotel." Just as the words left my mouth, thunder cracked the dark sky. "Emily?" Concerned, she asked, "It's pouring outside? They didn't take you home. I'll come get you." Mid-sentence, Alex's guilt-ridden voice interrupted, asking if I was upset because of him, stating he should have just died abroad. Emily quickly comforted him, then redirected her anger towards me, blaming me and asking what my problem was when it was only a 5-minute break. That triggered something within me. Let's get divorced. I'm not apologizing to Alex. The mistake isn't mine. It's yours. If you can't let go, why involve me? You were the one who confessed, who wanted us together forever, and that's why I chose you so firmly. After 8 years, are their feelings worth more than mine? After hanging up, I swiftly flagged down a taxi. Sitting in the cab, I received another message from Emily. "Daniel, if you mess up, admit it. Do you really think any woman would want to be with a worthless guy like you, apart from me? Especially since you went out of your way to save me just to make me feel grateful?" I stared blankly at the text. I thought the day couldn't get any worse, but I was mistaken. I rolled down the car window, letting the cold wind hit my face. My left leg was so painful it was nearly numb. With a bitter laugh, I asked the driver to take me to the hospital. I was still dressed in a muddy Groom suit. Upon entering the hospital lobby, a nurse asked if I needed assistance. Dragging my injured leg, I calmly informed her that my condition had worsened. Upon hearing this, she rushed me up to the 3rd floor. The doctor frowned at me. "Your injury is severe, yet you managed to recover enough to leave the wheelchair. Quite fortunate. Why would you neglect it like this? Getting wet and cold, walking so far." Facing his questions, I could only offer a helpless smile. Seeing this, he mentioned they'd arrange surgery immediately. Lying on the operating table, I recalled the doctor's words. Although he prioritized replacing the metal plates, he warned that if the bone damage was extensive, amputation might still be necessary. I ended up calling Emily. As soon as the call connected, Alex's voice came through, apologizing. Emily quickly grabbed the phone, scoffing, "Daniel, now you realize you're wrong, but it's too late. After what happened to Alex, unless you come and apologize to him right now, I won't forgive you." I held back my words and turned to the doctor. "Please proceed." Back home, nothing seemed different in the decor. It looked like Emily had been with Alex the entire time. I checked Alex's social media. He had posted numerous updates. Proud and beautiful Emily, cooking with love, inspiring everyone. I saved each one and then turned off my phone. After packing some belongings, I moved directly into a hotel. A hot bath gradually warmed my cold and stiff body. I took a few days off work. Once somewhat healed, I returned to the office. My mother kept calling, asking if I'd reconciled with Emily. I told her I wasn't going to be with Emily anymore. Her incessant wailing only stressed me out, so I stopped answering. Once at work, people gave me strange looks. A colleague, Sarah, pulled me to my desk. That's when I noticed the headlines online. She grasped my hand with surprise and envy. I always thought Alex was Emily's husband. Who knew it was Daniel? I laughed awkwardly and skimmed the articles. Someone had captured the wedding fiasco and posted it online, turning it into a dramatic scandal. Emily's strange behavior at the wedding damaged her reputation further, and her company also suffered. Previously, I would have rushed to help Emily out of a scandal. But now, having decided on a divorce, I didn't care to get involved. When it was time to leave work, Emily waited at the exit, a rare occurrence. I turned to avoid her, but she quickly caught up and pulled me into her car. "Still angry? Can't you distinguish a wedding from a lifetime commitment?" she asked. "You're a man. Asking for a divorce is immature. Is this how you behave? Abandoning home? Stop being ashamed. Didn't you always want to try that fancy rooftop restaurant?" Let's go now." After saying this, she pulled a gift box from the storage and tossed it to me. The contents spilled out. A watch that appeared more expensive than the wedding ring, with a price tag of $999,999 still attached. Clearly a last-minute purchase. Before, when I was upset, she'd cook for me, watch movies patiently, comfort me, or play games all day to lift my spirits. Now she acted like her family, putting a price on my genuine feelings and expecting me to be thankful. I placed the watch back and shook my head. This is too expensive. Save it for Alex, and I'm not being dramatic. If you and Alex care so much about each other, I'll step down as your husband. Let's find a time to finalize the divorce. We had already obtained the marriage certificate before the wedding, so now we needed divorce proceedings. I recalled a dinner party where I'd heard her, Alex, and some friends jokingly ask why the heiress was with someone as ordinary as me. She had casually fed a grape to Alex, joking, "I can't say I love him, but Daniel spent 8 years with me and injured his leg to save me. It'd be a shame not to marry him. It's just a title. It doesn't matter. To me, our marriage was some kind of charity. But for you, it was all about love and sincerity. Now that you don't love me anymore, you don't care about the title." I thought that by letting them be together, she'd be happy. Unexpectedly, she turned red with anger and slammed the steering wheel. "Daniel, do you even hear yourself? You spent years pleasing my parents like a lapdog, acting injured to remind me of your life-saving favor. Wasn't it all to be my husband? And now you're talking about letting go? How ridiculous. Just because the wedding didn't happen, we can always reschedule. And who's to blame? I agreed to marry you. It was just about fulfilling an old promise to Alex. You didn't have to throw a fit." She always accused me of faking a leg injury to make her feel guilty. But back then she was drunk, surrounded by troublemakers. I had shielded her with my body, took a beating for her safety. She went to the hospital, stayed through rehab, and even cried, saying she wouldn't marry anyone else. She knew all this just after Alex returned. She regretted it and blamed everything on me. She slammed on the horn, making it blare sharply. If she was this angry before, I'd have already apologized and explained. But now I don't even want to argue. I turned to look at the scenery outside the car. After a while, perhaps because she didn't receive the submissive apology she expected, she turned to me and called out, "Daniel?" I closed my eyes, not responding. The GPS kept updating the traffic conditions. When we were 0.2 kilometers away from our destination, her phone suddenly rang. Alex was on the line, panting, saying his heart was acting up again like he was dying or something. Honestly, I'm tired of hearing it, even if he's not tired of saying it. Ever since he came back to the country, every significant holiday his heart would act up. Anyone with eyes could see he was faking it, but sadly, Emily couldn't. I was the first to speak up. "Just drop me off at the next intersection." Emily looked at me, startled. "You're not mad? Not insisting on going with me?" I shook my head. I used to dislike her being alone with Alex, so I'd suggest going with her to see him. Back then, she'd insult me, calling me dirty, petty, and telling me to learn some decency from Alex. She frowned, and her phone kept vibrating. The car soon reached the intersection. As I opened the door to get out, she grabbed my wrist, looking at me with a complicated expression. "I'll check on him and come back to take you out for dinner. Rest assured, this position is yours. Don't be mad." I'm not mad," I replied, trying to pull away. She tightened her grip. "Daniel, you're different now. Not jealous anymore." "Huh? What's there to be jealous of? Alex treats you like a sister. It's normal for him to reach out to you first, isn't it?" "Go on." I smiled, pried her hand off, and exited the car. I took a taxi back to the hotel, ate at the buffet, and then went straight to sleep. Half asleep, Emily called to explain that Alex couldn't be left alone and she couldn't take me out for dinner, telling me not to wait for her. I simply replied, "I've already eaten." Silence followed. Then she gritted her teeth, asking, "Do you really have to be like this?" I mumbled a yes before hanging up and returning to sleep. It wasn't until the next day that I saw her text, warning me not to play with fire. Back at the office, I finally understood what she meant. The projects I was handling had all been transferred to Alex. He was now our new team leader, always smiling as he assigned me various menial tasks. Emily would always join him for lunch, and when she saw me, her eyes were ice cold. Emily's scandals online kept escalating. She wanted me to attend a press conference on Monday to help clarify that Alex wasn't some kind of lover, accusing me of interfering with her relationship with Alex when she went abroad and forcing her to marry me by pretending to be hurt. She framed it nicely, saying I'd still be envied by everyone and should just endure a bit of bad reputation first. This storm would pass, and Alex wouldn't be affected. She claimed all this was because of my demands during the wedding and that I should bear the consequences. Naturally, I refused and blocked her. But then Emily's parents approached me, warning that I better comply with their arrangements and not act recklessly just because I saved Emily's life. I treated them the same way, blocking them as well, and I directly quit the company. I wasn't lacking in skills. Several companies had reached out before, but now when I contacted them, they all seemed hesitant. I knew this was Emily's doing, forcing me to agree to the press conference. But this time, I refused to yield. After another failed job application, a past client contacted me. They had a new overseas operation that needed manpower, offering pay no less than my current earnings, but the job was abroad. They asked if I was interested. Since I'm an only child, I hesitated, thinking about my parents, and told them I'd consider it first. Back at the hotel, I received a call saying my mother's headaches were acting up again. I immediately took a taxi home. As soon as I walked in, Emily was there too. My mother took my bag, looking perfectly fine. I stared at her, realizing I'd been betrayed by my own parents once again. At dinner, Emily sat next to me, continuously serving me food. The three of them acted so harmoniously, as if they were the real family. My mother kept praising Emily. Emily is truly an exceptional daughter-in-law. Not only is she from a good family, but she also cares for our Daniel. My father, supposedly the elder, was flattering Emily, chatting about how I was too headstrong at the wedding, thanking her for being so forgiving. Their subservience made all my perseverance from the past days crumble instantly. My eyes reddened as I gripped the juice my mother handed me tightly. There's nothing really. After all, we'll be married soon. Even if Daniel is wrong, I'll try to be accommodating. It's just about the press conference. Emily's gaze was fixed on me, filled with contempt and certainty of her victory. I tightened my grip, causing the juice to spill over and drip onto the floor. Unable to bear it, I looked at my parents. Am I really your child? Why do you never stand firm with me when it matters? Am I really your child? Why do you never stand firm with me when it matters? I repeated. I've told you already, I won't be staying with Emily anymore. Emily's brows furrowed, clearly confused as to why I, who had compromised so many times, was being so stubborn now. My mother paused her hand that was wiping the table, then tossed a juice-stained rag at my head. The sticky yellow-orange juice mixed with gray dirt dripped down my face. She smiled apologetically at Emily. Emily, it's all my fault I didn't raise Daniel right, that he'd want a divorce over something so trivial. Then she didn't hesitate to slap me, loudly scolding, Daniel, do you think you're still some 20-year-old? You're 30. Emily isn't even bothered by the fact you haven't achieved anything. She isn't annoyed by your antics. You should be grateful. Yet, you want a divorce. Do you have any manners? Seriously, how long are you going to keep whining about that little thing at the wedding? If you can't think for yourself, at least think about your parents and family. My face burned, my head tilted to the side. Emily didn't see that the slap came from my mother. She jumped up and helped me stay steady. My mother's next slap landed on Emily's shoulder. Emily winced but looked at me worriedly. You okay? Let's get you to a hospital. Then she turned to my mother. Auntie, Daniel is part of my family now, especially after he saved my life. Mess with him again and I won't hold back, even if you're his mother. My mother froze, shocked. I laughed, devoid of humor, glaring at her with disgust. Emily, what's with the act? Isn't this what you wanted all along? Her usual superiority vanished, and she looked lost. Daniel, well, you really want me to take the fall for Alex, huh? Fine, I'll attend the press conference. Don't regret it later. With that, I slammed the door shut and left the house. I walked faster and faster, flagged down a taxi, and sped away. In the rearview mirror, I saw Emily standing at the entrance for a long time. She kept calling, but I ignored every call. Then she texted me about the press conference, saying desperate times call for desperate measures, and she'd make it up to me once it was over. See, even she knows how unfair this is for me. As for Alex, I'm just the sacrificial lamb. Whatever. I blocked her number. Once back at the hotel, I collapsed onto the bed, throwing an arm over my eyes. Relentlessly, my parents called. "Mom, are you trying to drive her crazy? My headache is back, and if you don't make up with Emily, she'll just let herself suffer to death." Then came the endless lecture about how they raised me and how ungrateful I was. I remembered how their faces changed once they discovered Emily's family background. I never understood why children are supposed to automatically love their parents while some parents don't love their kids back. I texted back, "Your body's yours. If you want to perish in pain, I'm not stopping you." Then I ignored all her messages. I called a client saying I was ready to work overseas. The press conference was on Wednesday, a terrible day for Emily's company to launch their new products. These business folks were always about profits. Even now, they couldn't miss maximizing publicity. Dressed in all black, standing at the entrance, the media swarmed. Alex and Emily were nearby. Emily wasted no time rushing over to lock her arm in mine. She signaled security to shield us. I tried to shake her off, but she tightened her grip. "With this crowd, watch your legs." Flashes blinded me, so I let it be. Inside, journalists were more disciplined. Alex shot me a smug grin. I smirked back. "Hope you can keep that up, Mr. Daniel." Alex just left the country and you couldn't wait to play the lover. How low? What were you thinking? And isn't it true you orchestrated an ambush on Emily's route just to play the hero? Where did you come up with such a plan? Two men stood up first, throwing sharp remarks. Emily beside me, her face turning icier, snapped, "Who told you to ask these things?" I glanced at her, only 4 words on my mind. Put on a show. It wasn't like she couldn't predict what would happen by having me here. Ignoring her look of confusion and regret, I addressed the reporters. "Friends of Alex, huh? I get why you'd act like this." Their eyes flickered, and one of them mumbled, "Quit slandering us." Yet they averted their gaze under my steady stare, not daring to argue further. Digging deeper, their identities couldn't stay hidden, especially with cameras rolling today. With Emily lingering by my side, Alex swayed slightly. Emily rushed over to support him. "You okay? Hard acting up again." Once she left my side, I was alone on stage. I noticed her letting go reluctantly, only to be grabbed by Alex, who said he couldn't breathe. She hesitated but stayed with him. I calmly shifted my focus back. Questions flew at me, full of accusations like lover, homewrecker, and freeloader. Finally, after they'd had their fill, I stood up, picked up the mic, opened my briefcase, and threw out hundreds of photos. "Who's the real lover here? Judge for yourselves." Some photos landed at Alex's feet. One glance shattered his handsome, gentle facade. The pictures showed Alex overseas with various women, different looks and outfits in bars and clubs. Studying abroad, long-distance relationships, it was all a web of lies. He went abroad to run away with his first love, not for any other reason. He sought excitement and disliked the idea of a family-arranged marriage, so he abandoned Emily. But after being let down and deceived, he returned to Emily, wrecking my life in the process. Why should I just accept that? And Emily? She knew all about it. She would cover up the truth and let me take the blame just for him. Daniel, all the whispers and stares landed on them, just like on their wedding day. Alex turned pale, clutching his chest for support against Emily. Emily looked at me, disbelief evident on her face. I enlarged a chat screenshot on the big screen behind me. It was from the day before the wedding. Alex DM'd me, asking who I thought Emily would choose the next day, him or me. I didn't understand his meaning back then. Not until Emily left me without a second thought. I scrolled through the pictures I saved, taken every time Emily met up with Alex. He always posted photos of just the two of them, from every angle, full of intimacy. I walked over and threw a heart exam report in Alex's face. "Even your heart condition is fake, Alex. You're quite the actor." He immediately furrowed his brow, looking flustered. "Daniel, I don't know what you're talking about. I know you've always envied Emily's affection for me, but you shouldn't forge these things to frame me. What a drama king." I was done talking and said, "Whether it's true or not, someone will dig into it. After all, the reporters from major platforms here don't mess around." His face twitched, and he immediately covered his mouth, pretending to cough. Surprisingly, Care didn't rush to his side this time. Instead, she hurried up to me. "Cheating, affairs, white lies, her reputation is ruined, along with the product launch. The company would surely take a huge hit." I thought she was coming to settle the score, but she clutched two photos tightly instead. In them, she was wrapped in a towel, held by Alex. Another featured a private box where she and Alex shared a passionate kiss, eyes closed. With trembling eyelashes, she grabbed my arm. "Daniel? How did you get these photos? That's not what you think." I laughed and shrugged her off. "Oh, really? Did someone force you to kiss him? I always thought you could see Alex's posts too, but clearly you had no clue. No wonder you could boldly tell me it was nothing but a minor issue at the wedding." The place was chaotic. Satisfied, I nodded, flashed a cruel smile at Emily, and raised my voice so everyone looked my way. As for myself, I switched the big screen from chat logs to the divorce papers. "Starting today, Emily and I are no longer married." Emily froze, staring dumbfounded at the divorce papers on the screen. The reporters clutched the photos I had thrown out earlier and snapped pictures of the screen. The focus of the interviews shifted entirely to Emily and Alex. Meanwhile, I pushed through the crowd and made a stylish exit. As I reached the door, I could still hear Alex yelling in fury. "Emily!" Trapped by the crowd and unable to catch up with me, she cried my name, begging me not to leave to hear her out. I didn't even glance back. I had just flagged down a taxi and was about to leave when Emily's parents arrived, demanding to know what I had done. I grinned brightly, offering just a little token of appreciation from me. The incident at the launch went viral. My parents kept calling, asking if I'd lost my mind wanting a divorce from Emily and urging me to cooperate with the company's crisis PR. I thought they were just talking nonsense. I had finally figured it out. As an only child, I had given up too many opportunities to stay by their side. I always believed my parents couldn't be wrong, that they loved me deep down. But now I saw the truth. There really are parents who don't love their kids. They raised me but never gave me the unconditional love or protection parents should. So from now on, I'd just fulfill my financial obligations and then live freely, chasing the winds, the sea, and the mountains. This PR crisis was massive. The company's stock hit rock bottom for days. It wasn't about feeling happy or unhappy anymore. It was about feeling liberated. I planned my departure for 2 weeks later. I even enrolled in an English-speaking course, thinking with everything going on, Emily wouldn't have time to bother me. But a week later, as I was leaving my class, I spotted her waiting outside. She looked thinner, wearing the blue scarf I had hand-knitted for her birthday last year. Before, I'd saved up for months to buy her clothes and bags. But then I realized what seemed precious to me was the cheapest in her closet. Last year, I had saved up for 3 months and spent almost as long learning to knit a scarf, hoping she'd feel my love more. But when I gave it to her, she barely glanced at it before tossing it in the closet's farthest corner. I wanted her to try it on, but she just stared at my hands, prickled with needles, and frowned. "You didn't knit this yourself, did you? Daniel, you wouldn't do something so silly, would you?" I quickly hid my hands behind my back, feeling dejected. "Of course not." Seeing me eye her scarf, she deliberately adjusted it, revealing the white crane embroidery with her name. "Daniel, does it look good? I thought you threw it away ages ago." I responded blandly, turning to head back toward my current hotel. She followed me into the narrow hotel, hesitating before she spoke. "You still have an injury on your leg? How can you stay here? If you're out of money, I can help." I cut her off. "Have you forgotten? You ruined the product launch. You ruined yourself. You ruined Alex." Daniel, I've thought it through. It wasn't your fault. If you come back with me and apologize to my parents, I promise you'll be my only husband. I almost laughed in disbelief. I had already printed the divorce papers, and she still thought I wanted to marry her. I think you missed the point. The thing is, I don't want you anymore, I said. There's no way I'm going back with you to apologize. She frowned, her eyes turning red, and moved to hug me. I stopped her with a cold stare. Daniel, you never used to say such hurtful things to me. You're mad at me, right? I can explain. While speaking, she pulled out a stack of photos from her bag. Ignoring her, I focused on boiling water in the kettle. She followed me. This kissing picture? Alex lost a dare. There were too many people watching. I couldn't embarrass him. And this one? It was raining heavily that day. My clothes were soaked. At the hotel, he suddenly didn't feel well. I went to support him. That's why we ended up hugging. And there's this one. The water went from boiling to cold. She still had many photos in her hand, her voice growing softer, almost tearful. I looked at her. Do you want to keep talking? Clutching the photos. She closed her eyes in pain. Our families arranged the marriage. I backed out because I liked you. I turned him down when he confessed because of that. So he left the country out of spite. Daniel, we owed him back then. But I'll keep my distance from him now. You'll understand me, right? Her words surprised me. The first time I met Emily was at a college performance. My parents were strict about money. By my freshman year, they had cut off all my living expenses. No matter how much I worked, I often went hungry and couldn't afford a $300 performance outfit. At my wit's end, she handed me the outfit and said, "We can't let one person affect the whole class." That's when I noticed her. But Alex was always around, so I kept my feelings hidden. Little did I know she liked me too. What I felt then was nothing but disgust. I smirked. Did you think I'd be touched hearing this? Please, all I feel is disgust. These are your choices. You could make things right with him in any other way, but you chose to walk all over me. We're done. I'm not going to forgive you. I pulled out the divorce certificate. She looked at me, eyes wide in disbelief. Impossible. I haven't even signed. 3 days after the launch, Emily's parents confronted me. They called me uncultured and low class, pulling strings to end our marriage. I guess she realized this too as she slumped against the door. So you're not coming back, right? No. When I left, I told no one. But as I was about to board the plane, Alex rushed at me, yelling for me to die, a knife in his hand. He screamed that I took Emily away. He asked why she wouldn't accept him even after he broke us up. I couldn't dodge in time. In a split second, a familiar figure pushed me away. The knife stabbed into Emily's abdomen. Blood drenched her light blue down jacket instantly. Airport security subdued Alex. Someone in the crowd called the police as she fell. I felt calm as the boarding announcement sounded. I held the ticket in one hand while her grip tightened on my wrist. Pale-faced, she begged, "Daniel, I'm really sorry. Please stay." Her desperate tugging made her bleed more. I had no feelings left for her, but didn't want that guilt on my conscience. I took off the scarf I had knitted for her, pressed it on her wound, and calmly dialed 911. Then, I pried her fingers off one by one. "Emily, you're really annoying like this." I handed her over to the airport staff and walked away without looking back. Because of what I said, Alex struggled for breath, clutching his chest. They no longer yelled at me for being heartless for leaving my parents behind. Instead, they begged, hoping I'd come home for the holidays. Emily's company went bankrupt, apparently because Alex failed to take charge. He not only spread scandals about Emily online, but also sold company secrets to their rival. In the end, a crazed Emily dragged him off the company building roof. They both died. I was admiring a waterfall with colleagues, listening to our new, charming boss gossip about the past. Unmoved with the holidays nearing, I replied to my parents, "With the holidays nearing, I'm not coming back." Then I posed for pictures with a colleague. I smiled for the camera for the first time in ages. I knew my new life had only just begun.